Hello, everyone. Our thinking point for today is something that's more lighthearted. We'll actually digress a bit from our usual topic about the grind, the 9 to 5, work life, etc. It's a topic which perhaps many of us have already encountered at least once in our life, and that is how to avoid awkward interactions during family gatherings. Obviously, my heritage and my ethnicity is Asian, and in most Asian cultures, it's very common to do large meetups with both your nuclear and extended family during special occasions. And of course, it's natural that you won't necessarily be close to all of the members of that family gathering. And some awkward questions will usually arise. For example, I've been asked a lot in maybe the past 10 years or more, when are you getting married? What's your job now? Why don't you have any kids? And so on. Very, very private and very personal questions, which I'm not sure if our Western colleagues will be able to relate to, but those kinds of questions are very common in the Philippines and perhaps in other Asian countries. And these questions usually arise from people who you barely know. They're really, really extended family, like the cousin of your second aunt or something like that. And personally, if I'm not in the mood or if I'm not willing to answer these very private questions, my first response is usually humor. I use humor first to deflect the question if I don't want to answer it directly. Going back to the previous example, oh, why don't you have any wife or why don't you have any kids right now? My response would usually be, and this is my exact response most of the time when I get asked the question is, well, I actually have a Google form. I have an application form online, but there are too many respondents as of the moment, and I can't get back to them at the moment. Too many responses, too many applications. That's my favorite response. And usually, it does get a laugh from everyone around the circle, including the person asking the question. If you're not up for humor, of course, the alternative would be to answer it as vaguely as possible. You can say something like, oh, it's not my priority right now. I'm working on it. Very vague answers, which are not necessarily lies. You're not lying, you're just responding in a very ambiguous manner. And after the question has been deflected, because of course, eventually the person asking the question will tire out. It's of course unnatural if that person will be eyeing you and targeting you for the rest of the social occasion unless that person is obsessed with you. When the question has already been deflected, my second response is to decrease, to lessen my interactions henceforth with that person. And I have 3 ways, which I personally use to deflect, to decrease the interactions. Number 1, is possible if the social gathering is a large one, usually at least 10 people. After the question has been deflected, my next response is to look for somebody else. Anybody, if you're not close to most of the people in that gathering, anybody will do. But you need to find somebody within that gathering to interact with. Start with anything like, "Hi, I'm Mr. Ganyan Ganyan from this side of the family. Who are you?" Strike whatever kind of conversation you are comfortable with. But the important thing is you need to look busy and you need to look engaged so that the person who's making you feel awkward or bugging you will no longer have the opportunity to continue bugging you because you're busy, you're engaged. Second, especially if the interaction is quite intimate and there's not a lot of people in the gathering, is you can introduce the person asking you the original question to somebody else. And this tactic is actually one I learned by reading a very old book about social etiquette. I think when I was still in high school. It's a very subtle way to basically get rid of a person who's making you feel awkward. Introduce that person, person A, to somebody else you know, even barely, in the same circle. Like, "Oh, Mrs. Garcia, by the way, have you met Mr. Cruz? He's a good family friend of etc., etc." And the rest will be history. The person who was previously bugging you will now be busy and engaged. And the third and simplest way to get rid of the person bugging you is to simply leave and go to another part of, say, the house or the function room. Say you need to go to the bathroom. Say and offer, let's get some more food from the buffet table. And when you do that, you don't necessarily have to go back and talk to the same person. When you go to the bathroom or when you go to the buffet table, you can already strike a conversation with somebody else, even if that somebody else is somebody you barely know of. So, personally, that's my quick fix when I try to deflect and avoid socially awkward questions during social gatherings. It's twofold. The first step is to deflect the question, either by using a joke, by using humor, or by answering it as vaguely as possible. The second phase to respond to the socially awkward question is three options. You can introduce the person who was previously bugging you to another person. The second would be to leave, find another place within the social gathering, the social circle. And the third would be to look for somebody else within the social group, social gathering, and strike a conversation with that person. I also forgot a fourth approach you can do to deflect the question, because you can bet the person asking you that socially awkward question is maybe self-centered, maybe a bit narcissistic. You can throw a question right at him or her and ask him about his or her job. Ask him or her about what her current activities are, where she went to vacation in the last summer. And usually, if it's true that this person is quite self-centered, they'll actually appreciate it that you're asking questions about them. it makes them feel good that they're talking about themselves, that someone is interested about them and their life. So I'd also like to know your thoughts. What do you do when you are encountering socially awkward questions during family or social gatherings? I'd like to know your thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us in today's lighthearted thinking point, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.